And then there's this report from independent journalist Jonathan Larson this morning. I don't know if you've seen this yet, where he's found that U.S. troops were told the Iran war is for Armageddon and the return of Jesus. I'll read you a little bit from this piece. A combat unit commander told non-commissioned officers at a briefing Monday that the Iran war is part of God's plan, that President Donald Trump was anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to Earth, according to a complaint by a non-commissioned officer from Saturday morning through Monday night. More than 110 similar complaints about commanders in every branch of the military had been logged by the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. And just as one more example, of course, we all listened to that interview between Mike Huckabee, Christian Zionist, and Tucker Carlson, where he said, yeah, I'm good with the Greater Israel Project because he sees that as fulfillment of a biblical prophecy.
Stargazers around the country were treated to a total lunar eclipse last night. The phenomenon began at about 10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. It lasted for more than an hour. Also known as a blood moon, it was also seen over North America and New Zealand. It's the last time the rare total lunar eclipse will be seen until 2029.
So this is the key question. Why do they do this? I think there are three possibilities, okay? And I think all three possibilities are valid. The first is the idea of hubris. If you look at history, this is how empires behave. So the Mindoro kidnapping was quick, successful, and it was adrenaline rush for Trump. And that made him overconfident in the capacity of the American military, okay? So hubris is a factor, and we see this throughout history. Why did Hitler invade Stalin? Because he conquered Europe really easily, and he thought he was invincible, right? And that led to the destruction of the German army in the Soviet Union. So hubris is a factor. Then you have to look at internal political calculus, where even though America does not benefit from this war against Iran, Trump himself personally benefits. Why? Because the Saudis and the Israelis are bribing him to attack Iran. Remember that the Saudis invested $2 billion in the private equity fund of Jared Kushner, who is the son-in-law of Donald Trump. And the Israelis, through Miriam Adelson, have been financing Trump's political career, right? So Miriam Adelson, a few months back, said that she will put up $250 million if Trump were to run a third term. So Trump is getting a lot of financial and political support from the Saudis and the Israelis. Also remember that if this war goes sideways and Trump is forced to use ground troops, he will probably get approval from Congress, and this will give him emergency war powers, which will allow him to influence the midterms. So Trump is thinking about a third term. And I think at the ballot box, he probably won't get it. But if there's a war going on and you can delay elections and you have emergency war powers and people rally around the flag, then he probably will get a third term. And the last factor that is very important is the eschatological factor, where if you look at the Epstein files, it's clear that we are run by secret societies. It's clear that the world is run by these individuals who have a lot of power. We don't know who they are, but they control the military. They control the national security apparatus. And these people, there are different names for these people. You can call them the Illuminati. And the Illuminati are composed of three major groups, okay? You have the Jesuits, who control the Vatican. You have the Sephardim Frankists, which control the modern state of Israel today. And you have the Freemasons, which control the national security apparatus of the United States. And they believe that Israel, this war in the Middle East, is key to the end times in creating heaven on earth. So it's almost like a script that they're following, even though it doesn't make any geopolitical sense. Okay, so I would say that these three are the best reasons why this is happening.
Wow. Well, sir, I hope you come back. This was very informative, I think, for both of us. We deeply appreciate your time. Thank you.
You can't help but behold the miracle before you. And it got me thinking about another miracle that I hope all of you don't see too far away. Because 1917 was a miracle, 1948 was a miracle, 1967 was a miracle, 2017, the declaration of Jerusalem as the capital was a miracle, and there's no reason why the miracle of the reestablishment of the temple on the Temple Mount is not possible.
In advance or just after Trump started this war, there was this bizarre CNN piece where they were talking about how the date was chosen because of its connection to the Purim holiday and something to do with Amalek. We've got Bibi out talking about Amalek again, similar rhetoric to what we heard in connection with the genocide in Gaza.
Axios had this about the scope and scale of what we're talking about right now, that the sheer geographic scope of the war is staggering, directly involving at least 11 countries, disrupting the global flow of oil and gas and rattling markets worldwide. This is really the first time that we have seen the Gulf states band together against Iran, joining the United States and Israel. How unique is that to you as somebody who's followed this your entire career?
And a map shows Israeli forces are extending their retaliatory strikes beyond Beirut, stretching into several Lebanese cities. Saudi Arabia could be on the brink of joining the regional conflict as well. A source telling Fox News that country is considering Air Force strikes on Iran targets, and in response to unprecedented missile and drone attacks from Iran. Brand new video from U.S. Central Command shows the equipment engaged in the Middle East mission. High-powered jets adding to the largest regional concentration of American military firepower in a generation.
Spur a public debate in the United States about this war. Make no mistake, Iran, not to mention Russia and China, are closely tracking the debates in the U.S. Congress for some who, including on the Republican side, who don't support the war effort, and they want to try to take advantage of that.
Can you talk about this immediate order from the State Department to Americans saying to immediately leave the region?
Well, I think, look, the Trump administration wanted to hold on to this element of surprise for the attack that we were planning on launching against Iran. And now we are in incident response, which makes it extraordinarily difficult to get our people out safely. There's a war on, and God forbid you're in Israel and you want to get out, or in the region. It's extraordinarily difficult. It puts a strain on the State Department to ensure that our U.S. citizens are able to evacuate as safely as possible. I wouldn't be surprised if down the road we may see the U.S. military become more involved in exfiltrating our citizens from harm's way.
To that end, Ambassador Michael Waltz said this.
President Trump is never going to take options off the table. Again, unlike his predecessor, who told the world, including our adversaries, over and over again, what he wasn't going to do. But I think the bigger point, which you nailed it, is that this President Trump, isn't about admiring the problem, hand-wringing. He's about solving these problems on his watch, not handing it over to the next generation.
They've also been saying that it is, of course, conditions-based and not based on a time frame. I'll give you a final thought here, Dan.
Look, I just think that what began this war was that the United States put massive military assets into the region designed to induce Iran to come to an agreement on their nuclear program, ballistic missile program, and support to proxy terrorists. Of course, Iran never negotiated in good faith, and I think the war will end when either all of that is destroyed or some remnant of this Iranian regime comes to the table and negotiates so that the Iranian regime no longer presents a threat in the region and beyond.
If the moon looks a little flush this morning, don't fret. It's just putting on a little bit of a show.
That's right. A rare blood moon total lunar eclipse is casting that deep orange-red glow. And our David Gonzalez is keeping an eye on it from the Griffith.
But it's really cool because, Marissa, all jokes aside, I feel like these moments are moments where it kind of feels like we're all together. And there's something very special about that, because there's very few times in this crazy world that we live in that everybody can just pause as humanity and take it in.